Are you looking for an edge in the real estate investment market? Not sure which markets or market segments offer the best opportunities or which strategies to implement? You've come to the right place. Hosts Eric Odom and Steven Silverman blend decades of combined experience in the Florida real estate investment market, along with their expert guest, covering topics in lending, investment strategies, property management, and development, giving you actionable investment ideas each and every episode you can use to learn and grow, all with a Florida twist. So, sit down, turn it up, and get ready to learn how experienced investors grow their cash flow and achieve their real estate investment goals. This is the Invest Florida Real Estate Show. And now, here's Eric Odom and Steven Silverman.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Invest Florida Real Estate Show. This is your co-host, Eric Odom, along with Steven Silverman. Steven, what's the story?
Well, Eric, with us, there's always a story. As commercial real estate brokers, we have to work on a lot of different things. Tomorrow, I'm actually going down to Naples with some investors from out of state who have identified Florida as the place with which they think there's long-term growth. So looking forward to that little trip.
Absolutely. We've got, I believe, a guest that people are going to be pretty excited about. He's a really high-energy guy, believes in the Florida story, not just the Florida story, but the Tampa story. And when you listen to him, it's hard not to be taken in by the level of energy and passion that he has. He was a flipper. He's a long-term holder, and now he's a developer. And, Steven, is there anything else you want to talk about, Wesley, before we get rolling?
Eric, I thought that would be a great title for a song or something. He was a flipper or a holder. It's like...
The Joker?
Yeah.
The Midnight, what's the... Well, anyway, we don't know anything about music. Let's roll on to our show with Wesley Burdette.
Wesley Burdette was in residential lending for 13 years. He moved to Tampa in 2010 with his family, and he saw an overcorrected housing market. And Wesley saw his opportunity. We look forward to hearing from Wesley now on how he moved from simple investment into multifamily developments.
Welcome, Wesley.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hey, doing terrific, man. So, elephant in the room is this enormous project that you've got going on in Seminole Heights. And for folks that don't understand Tampa, why don't you tell them a little bit about Seminole Heights first, and then we'll talk to them about the development itself.
All right. Tampa, is a town that, well, a city, I should say. It has, kind of somewhat of an empty downtown area, and it's really fed by its major artery systems. There's an area called Ybor, Seminole Heights, the Heights area, and then South Tampa. Seminole Heights is a what's the right way? Kind of a hipster, eclectic, kind of a unique crowd set that.
Can you say transitional?
We could say transitional.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely transitional from, more of a sleepy town to more of now a much more foodie, craft beer, unique, product set. You have, more artisan. It's an area, if you want to draw a comparison, people out of New York would be like a Williamsburg, coming out of Brooklyn or something like that. That's probably the closest thing I say with Seminole Heights. And,
it's raw.
It's raw. It's definitely raw, and it's it's still filled with car lots and auto body shops and
trendy restaurants, which is the forefront of.
And then you've got two of the top 5 restaurants in Tampa are in Seminole Heights,
and it seems like all the creative culinary activity is really happening in the Heights.
Yeah, it is, because that's it's a part of that mainstay. You've got those people that are a lot of patrons are of that creative set. They want something that's unique, different, but they want that, that high quality. And that's all, it's mixed in with this very, transitioning, type of, infrastructure.
Now, were you always a developer? I know you did some residential lending. Is this your first foray? Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are.
No, I have not always been a developer. I mean, I've kind of fell into that, more from a process, from my background. I've been in lending, residential mortgage lending for the past 13, 14 years up in the Washington, D.C. area. Still have that today. But the big transition being on the real estate side is, on the financing, you see both sides of the equation. You see, the buying and the selling, but the financing is how you kind of pull a deal apart. And what got me into Tampa was doing a lot of the rehab marketplace, where we get in there and, actually, interact with, people on a much more grassroots level. And when you're buying a house and when you're rehabbing a house for somebody, you really get a feeling for, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you buying it? Why are you moving to this particular area? Because in Seminole Heights, it wasn't I was moving from this street over to the next street. I was coming from South Tampa area. I was coming over from Ybor. I was coming in from the suburbs. It was this kind of migration to more of an urban core. And the draw of, like, as we said, some of these great restaurants, these great, craft brew houses and bar and nightlife, and as well as the central location. That's the other thing Seminole Heights really does have is the location. It's just very centrally located to the downtown, the Ybor, and to these other areas. So, the rehab really, I did 15 of those last year, and that's what really kind of got my background and understanding of, the real estate market in Seminole Heights.
Now,
so
when you said you did rehabs, were those houses that you were single-family houses that you were purchasing for yourself and flipping?
No, yeah, I would buy them. No, I have two sides. I mean, there's the rental business that I have. We're buying home. There's like 27 of those properties, and then there's the flipping. I was kind of flipping, but these are historic bungalows. These are kind of really very cool, very character filled type properties, and so we would put those into the retail market. I would go in there and I'd redesign them, look at them, but it's the buying, the selling, and then also the designing. Those particular properties that would give, bring back the character, I guess, is a lot of them. Because a lot of these are, they had fallen to the wayside.
So we have people in that listen to the show, and some of them invest in single family homes. Tell us a little bit about the strategy that, what you looked for in a home, what kind of an upside and
Sure.
how they can learn how to go about and do the same.
I mean, obviously there's, how many different TV shows on there about home flipping.
Lots of home flippers, man.
Yeah.
Lots of educational material on that.
Yeah. All you got to do is watch TV and then it's easy. I'm kidding.
Make $1 million.
Yeah.
Retire
it's easy.
in 2 years.
Everybody should be rich flipping. And it's not that. There's a lot of hard work that goes into, but to be honest with you, it's a lot about is planning. You really have to do your homework. You need to know those neighborhoods. When those just driving by and they pull up a couple comps on Zillow, that's not doing your homework. That's not understanding. It's not nearly enough data. And I see a lot of guys lose their shirts doing that.
Yeah, particularly in Seminole Heights, man. One street.
Yeah, but you can be in the wrong street.
Difference.
Yeah. I mean, once you pick a neighborhood, that's great. But now, what makes that house special? What makes that lot special? Where's that location? What are you going to do with it? All these things that kind of go into, are you going to do historical restoration? Are you just going to come here and do, lipstick on the pig, just going to paint it and go? Are you going to actually get your hands in there and do the underneath, the piers, the structure, the floor choices? These houses are 100 years old. They need some love and they haven't seen it in a long time. Those are the things that you have to really be able to understand and assess. And that's where, like I said, you get into a situation, they start getting in, they start pulling back the onion, like, they pull a bathroom wall, we're just going to do this. Oh, wow, all my 2x4, my whole framing's rotted out. That $5,000 you had budget just turned into a $12,000 project. They quickly run out of money. Next thing you know, I bought probably a fourth of my flips from people that started and couldn't finish.
No kidding.
No, it's pretty prevalent.
But so you were doing residential lending. Were you lending to flippers?
No.
You were doing
This is a pretty cash-oriented business. I mean, there's not there's not a lot of lending that goes into complete rehabs, especially on the spec side.
So you went from lending to the purchasing single family. Tell us about your first deal.
The first deal was on Fern Street in Seminole Heights on the flipping side. First deal, we bought some other properties before that, but that was my first flip. And, hopefully no police scanners, but, I remember having to break into the house and there was an open window because you want to get a little peek inside, because you want to know what you're buying because you're buying these, it was an auction deal. And this is before the banks got really overly aggressive on the auctions, because right now banks on auctions, they want their pound of flesh. I mean, they've recapitalized. So now they want, full judgment values. Back then though, about 2-3 years ago, you didn't have to do that. I mean, they were wanting to get out. They were looking to get capitalized. So auctions were great. So got in there, looked through the property and, kind of looking, I'm like, this is a property I think I can do something. It wasn't in horrible shape. It was in bad shape, but not horrible. And I'm like, you know what? And I'll be honest, it was one of those where I got in with saw a few TV shows, saw some excitement, but I also talked to enough people and I saw that there was people were, interested in that from a retail. And then 3 people came up behind me trying to do the same thing. And then we got into, kind of a bidding war. And it was more like, I just don't want to lose. Not a great strategy in auction, as a no-lose strategy. Shouldn't do that. But, that's how I got into it. I got the property and then, was able to put together a really interesting design. But I remember that first seeing the property and then the day of the buy. There is definitely an adrenaline rush when you're in the auctions. It's
easy to see how people bid them up.
and it's easy to see you can get yourself. Oh, I set my limit here, and I just passed it by $20,000. And
well, it's not only that, but the fact of the matter is, so many of these auctions, whether you're on tax deed or foreclosure, whatever,
right,
they either get pushed or they get canceled or they get tax deeds to get redeemed. And so you've looked at 30 deals,
yep,
and 29 have been pulled.
You hit the nail on the head.
And then you're at the 30th one, you're going, I got to swing at this pitch. I got to swing at this pitch. I got to swing at this pitch. And then you get caught in this situation.
That's right. And it gets, you can overpay for some of these. I mean, that one, at the end of the day, didn't overpay for it, but definitely, paid a pretty penny. In comparison for that time, it was a pretty high, high price, but it's just one, you kind of made some, I knew where I could retail it. And just based on, just talking and looking at the comps, and what I was going to end up doing in there. But for every dollar you're spending there, you make all your money on the buy. You buy it wrong. I don't care how good you do it. Unless you're really just going to go for something off the board, you have to buy it right, because your margin, your construction, you're not going to squeeze your construction cost 5% or any, that's going to make any big difference here.
And, in Florida, so many of the homes are block.
Right.
And you go in and you assume the worst. Okay. You're going to have to replace the AC. You're going to have to, maybe the roof has to be redone. But when you're dealing with these frame homes that are 100 years old, you don't know what you're getting into.
No,
so I'm really curious how you look at a deal. And really, if you're buying at an auction, you really don't get that great of an opportunity to inspect. So how are you trying to be profitable off of that?
And those are the risks you take on. I mean, and you have to be very cognizant of the price, of what you want to spend on it, because they are all frame. These are 100-year-old homes, and you have to know that, hey, you can get in there and say, all right, I need paint this. You kind of go through your checklist. But then you need to add on the OS factor, the old crap factor, because you're going to probably have a 30% variance. I mean, I did not have one deal that we ever hit the budget on. It never happened.
So when you go in and look at it, do you go with a contractor or?
Yeah. I'll look at it myself, and then I'll kind of first assess it. Then if I had something I think I really want to go after, then I'll bring one of my team. When I was doing that many, I basically had a dedicated crew. We'd run 2 or 3 crews. And so that, they knew they were always going to be busy. So I'd grab 1 or 2 of those guys. Cause I didn't, be honest with you, I didn't really want to crawl up underneath the piers and, get dirty, some of that stuff, cause it was pretty rough in some of these houses. But you really wanted to see the underbelly of the house, because in the historical section, Seminole Heights, they're all, most everything is sitting up on piers, and it's a different type of structure. You mentioned block and all that. That's a nice little monolithic slab that sits right on the ground. Great. Typically you can see, do I have any cracks? No. Okay. My foundation's fine. Here you could have, there's slope, that all these floors have moved. And so do I have a structural issue? Is that just, aging, and that's character? There's a fine line, what you can kind of get away with.
Well, how about, you've run over on all these deals. This is what you told us.
Right.
So have there been deals you've actually done pretty well on?
Yeah. Knock on wood, never lost money on a deal. I've had a few that, would like to have made more, but never have lost. And that's still because we still bought it right. Just because I went over, but a lot of times I recover that too, though. I mean, sometimes the ones I went over the most, I actually made the most. Because we ended up doing so much to the house, and it's a really grand home. We had one that was on an HGTV show, and it works itself out sometimes. Sometimes when you get into it, you can't always make your decision in 5 minutes, like you see again on a television show. Sometimes you get in it, and then the wheels start spinning, you start seeing the light, you start seeing the character, you start feeling it, and then your budget changes. So there's sometimes the scope changed, but a lot of times it was like, there was a bathroom floor that should have, it was like, oh, that's rotted out. Bathroom wall, the wiring in half the house wasn't good. These kind of things, but you kind of almost go in there expecting that you're going to see something. So it's just like, I really hope I can get in for this, but I'm kind of expecting, it's X and Y is what you kind of end up paying for. But, But a lot of it, it's really knowing the neighborhood and really being able to buy it at the right price.
So you're buying at the right price. How about selling? How did you handle the disposition? Is that something you do yourself, or you?
I did it myself. I didn't use agents, which, I'm sure you guys would love to hear that.
Well, we're commercial, so that's fine.
Yeah, you're commercial, yes. But, and the reason I didn't, I am doubly thankful I didn't, and it has nothing. I mean, saving the,
just 3%. Just say it. You hate agents.
I do. I hate agents. They don't necessarily add extraordinary amounts of value to some of these transactions. But to be honest with you, it was the information I learned. Showing a house.
Sure.
Talking to tenant. I learned so much, and that's what really got me into
your next phase.
The next phase, and it helped me on the next project. Hey, what did you like about this house? Did you like the custom countertops? Did you like this lighting package? Do you like this location? All these things. And so, if you look at my first flip, which looked absolutely nothing like the last one, and I had some friends that they couldn't even believe that I did something like that because it was much more like a very suburban type, because that's where I was familiar with. So,
if you were doing it, if you were handling it, how did you do that? Did you do it on putting out signs or?
There's MLS services. You would just go and put them up on like an Easy Choice or an MLS listing. You pay $300 and
sure.
It's on the MLS. And again, nothing against agents, but that's a big part of their marketing. Once it's on MLS, it's out there. I mean, you've got Trulia, Zillow. You've got all these services out there. Realtor.com. Sure. So everybody sees it. I mean, most of the time these people are already doing it, and they're already telling agents, hey, I want to see these 5 homes, because they just saw it go straight to their phone, or they're calling me direct. So it's not that hard to get, throw a wide net, with the MLS.
Are you offering a buyer rep commission on that?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Absolutely. I'm big believer in, if someone brings me, they're doing work. They're bringing someone to me, and
sure.
Absolutely, those guys need to be paid. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
So are you still doing the single family business?
Not much.
Okay.
Now I'm starting next week we're going to be starting 4-unit townhomes, which haven't been done in Seminole Heights. That's a new project that'll be starting off, and it's really plays along with some of the multifamily that I'm doing right now. But I think, again, as Seminole Heights is progressing from a straight historical kind of a sleepy town area of bungalows, is that you're seeing these people wanting more and more different types of product. Hey, listen, I want a bigger place. Give me that 1,800, 2,000 square feet. I like the garage. I want new. But by the way, I want to walk to everything. And that's what fits townhomes, really, really well. You start bringing in a little bit more density, and we'll see how they do. But so far, I've had a lot of good feedback. I've had a lot of calls. Everybody's excited. They want to know when they're coming on, when we're pre-selling, and which I haven't set that up yet. But I like, the fact that we're getting that early traction. And I think it's going to be a product set that, the Seminole Heights is, going to eventually adapt to and probably see more of.
So what you're saying is that it was by you talking to buyers of the single family homes and understanding what they were really looking for that led you to transition your business to multifamily.
No, it was a huge part of, my progression was really getting in, talking to as many people. And, for some of these times I'd show, we'd have open houses, I talked to 20, 30 people on a Sunday, and it was good. And these are, lengthy, some 10, 20, 30-minute conversations, and, just understanding the psyche and what was their mindset and driver, to come over here, into Seminole Heights, because most everybody coming through was from somewhere else. And it was, it was very, very, informative and very helpful for me. Sure.
And the townhome projects that you're doing now, are they condos or are they for rent?
No, these are going to be townhomes. So these will be for sale. These will be 4-unit. They'll be right there in the Seminole Heights village. So it's right walking distance into the refinery, to Ichikara, to the Independent, all these, the new Red Star Rock Bars. I mean, it's a half a block away.
And why did you determine multifamily instead of just knocking down a lot and adding additional homes? Because right now you've got the warehouse project we're going to talk about a little bit more, and then you've also got the townhome project.
Yeah. Well, I only from the sense that there's, single families out there I wanted to try to do something different. I want to kind of keep testing what those markets are going to bring. And that's really, if you don't try something, you don't know if it's going to work or not. And I think they have the more density and the more opportunity that you can put into a smaller space, but still provide a better product, I think yields better results.
This is a millennial market, Seminole Heights.
Yes, very much so.
What's their mindset? I mean, I first started learning about millennials at a retail conference in 2008, and I learned that they didn't drive, till they were like 20 something years old. They lived at home for a long period of time. They were probably going to be the first generation to majority not marry. There's a whole bunch of factors with the millennials. Tell me what your experience with, because they're the ones, the big renting, generation that's coming up.
That's correct. I mean, it's always, you never like to paint too big of a broad brush, but for the most part, these are much more open-minded, very socially natured. Even though, hey, everybody says, hey, you're on your iPhones and whatever all the time. They like to share. It's all about idea exchanging. They want to be able to talk. They want to change the world. These aren't the guys that are going to work for IBM and, Johnson & Johnson. These guys want to work for the small independents. They want to create their own path, and being able to create an app and sitting down in a coffee shop and have that open exchange of ideas is really what drives them. And that's also what we focus on when we're trying to put, an infill project together. We want to help that process go on, make it easier, make it more comfortable, make it an open environment. But that's what I see a lot is that millennials is that creative, energized, change the world mindset. But you're right. All those other statistics, they may not buy a house until they're 40. Kids aren't as, high a priority. And I think that a lot of that's true, but it's not for everybody. I mean, obviously we don't want to make that, distinction for everyone, but it's the mindset. It's the social interactions, what I see as the biggest difference or the biggest opportunity with the millennials.
And also just because of that, the environments in which they want to live are different, aren't they? Like they would much prefer to be in a mixed use kind of environment where it's just walk and shop and live.
The urban live, work, and play is a big factor of what the millennial lifestyle wants. I mean, back to the lack of cars. And they also tend to be a lot greener. I mean, they think about the environment, they think about organic, they think about the food that they eat. And the same token, they also want to be able to go right outside the door and go to the places they want to go and spend time with people that they want to spend time with. An urban core is a big part of that. So getting away from the cars, bikes are a great form of transportation. Is having access to that to get to and from is something that's very, very important to them. And it's something that you have to kind of keep in mind when you're doing these projects. If you can bring some of that stuff to the home, though, I mean, it doesn't mean hey they won't do it if it's not more if it's a block away they're not going. It's not quite that bad, but they want to have that option. Hey, is it a 3 or 4 block walk? They'll do it if they can get to another, a kind of a density pod somewhere.
So what you did is you focused on an area and then you focused on a target market within that area so that you could cater to all their needs.
Yeah, basically that's kind of it. I mean, and
hang on, let's tell the truth. It's like around the independent. Right?
Everything's around.
Walking distance, independent, of course, for folks that don't live in Tampa, is like a craft brew bar, and so you just need to be close to the independent, and then that's
the
that's
independent
money.
Is definitely the tent pole for most of my existence. I mean, and everything that I do, I have to admit, Veronica's a good friend of mine, and I don't know, it's like that outdoor beer garden, 100 different beers, and everybody's friendly kind of a place. Yeah, so you're right. That's you kind of playing yourself right around that as much as you possibly can. So. But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, it is kind of about, I shouldn't say dominating an area, but really understanding that area. It doesn't mean it's the only area that I'll ever work in. It's just one that, when you start to see an area that's moving in such an upward trajectory, if you want to say upward from, fully transitioning to a fully, ripe environment, it has that upward slope and it just needs the right push to get there.
What's your price point over there
for the townhomes?
Yeah, I mean, what works there? Like, what kind of price range do you want to be in? Because you've got the warehouse and you've also got the.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind that this market's also changing on its own. I'm doing a lot of work over there, but there are some, there's a lot of other projects going on in sense of like single family homes. Like last year, there may have been 5-6 new builds in all Seminole Heights. I think right now, and it's just June, I think there's over 20 going on right now. So that's a major shift. And then that's a part of the transitioning cycle that's happening right now is going from that next phase when you're going to start seeing less remodels and you're going to start moving into that newer product type. People want now a little more elevated buyer, a little more money's coming in. They say, listen, I love it here. I love the character, but you know what? I need a little more space. I don't want to maintain these older homes. So guess what? New builds starting to, to creep into this market. And I think it's going to be a much larger section of the buys coming in. And that price point's moving right now we're seeing 195 to 205 a square foot in Seminole Heights on new build,
which is amazing for that area.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean this was on rehabs. It was basically $145 to $175 a square foot. You had a few outliers in the 200, but that was your predominant area for the rehabs. But definitely a premium for the new build.
So you've been a little bit of a chameleon. You started off in a relatively short period of time. You started off in doing single family homes, moved to conventional type of multifamily, although not conventional for that neighborhood. Right. And now you have an exciting new project that everyone's talking about, which is converting an old warehouse into lofts.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's that's definitely my baby. It's called the warehouse. I'm a very creative marketer. It's an old warehouse, and that's what we're keeping with that. But it was just 20,000 square foot, the most innocuous building that I've driven by 100 times and never really noticed it from the street, and it's getting back to that product type where I really saw, people wanting to come here, but not everybody wanted to be buyers. And obviously in Tampa right now, multifamily is extraordinarily hot. I mean, and a lot of that's due to the fact that there hasn't been a lot of multifamily, especially infill projects done over the last 10 or 15 years. So there's really is a, kind of a structural component here that there was just a demand for this type of product. But that being said, Seminole Heights, really hadn't seen any significant new money or any real structural development kind of ever. I mean, most everything's been, rehabs, old buildings like the Independent, old, gas station, but nothing, coming in with a big push. So this is a project I started basically summer of last year. It took a long time to bring this to fruition. I mean, it took me almost 9 months. Talking to probably 12 or 13 different banks, going through the city, getting all the zoning, parking requirements, all the things I had to do.
Did you have an engineer helping you on this, or are you doing this by yourself?
No, I was doing a lot of this on my own.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like first time you're just out there to the wolves.
I learned a lot that way, but it could have been a little easier with some engineering, but they may not fought as hard as I did. We got a lot of no's. And I just didn't take a lot of those for, as
well. It's interesting because I've noticed sometimes when you go to the city and you talk, some developers will go with their engineers and their attorneys, but if you go personally and talk to them, they're much more open and
You're
they don't
absolutely
feel
right.
They don't feel threatened.
No, and I'm not coming in and it's like me versus you. Hey guys, I'm just a lonely guy. I'm just trying to help out here. Help, give me this project going. And I admit, the city, they were very helpful. And that's why I didn't take on a civil engineer, because I thought I was going to get a lot farther for exactly what you said, Stephen. And they did. They really, they helped a lot. Didn't mean it,
You're dealing with Mike? Mike, who are you dealing over at the city?
Yeah, Callahan.
Mike Callahan.
Yeah, Mike Callahan. Yeah, fantastic. Catherine Coyle's whole group. I mean, they were exceptional. Now, Catherine also lives in Seminole Heights, and they all just, they want to see this project happen too. Uh-huh. The parking was a big issue we had to deal with, just the way the site was. And then we had some zoning issues because it was miszoned. And so I had to kind of deal with that particular problem. So that took me about 3 months to get all that cleared up. But the banking was that was the bigger hurdle to get over, to finance a, $5 million build, in a area that's never had seen
anything like anything,
anything. Eric, this is such an exciting looking project.
I've seen.
Can we put a link, a photograph on our
absolutely.
website? Just
on the notes, we'll definitely have notes. On the notes section, we'll definitely have a link onto the mock-up. Is it all? Wesley, is it all rental or is it sale or what?
Yeah, these are, we started off, and that's the other thing. I started off as condo, way back when, and, then we kind of moved, but as I saw, and that's what happens kind of when back to the single family is that you get in there and the next thing you know, it kind of changes, kind of metamorphs itself and you start getting in, you keep working the plan. And then it went from 28 condos to 54 unit, multi-family apartments. We were going mixed use in the beginning and then we opted, to a lot of it's just we had such an over demand on our wait list. I mean, I had 250 people sign up on the wait list.
250 on the wait list.
Yeah, and we eventually cut it off.
And what's your price point there on the rental side?
We're going to be right around probably $1.60, $63 a square foot.
Okay,
so
not that $2 and $3 you're seeing in a lot of the cores.
No, I mean we're a good 40 cents under the rest of the market.
Okay.
Which part of it, hey, listen, I'm not going to sit there and, try to create sainthood here over, I want to make Seminole Heights great, but, we obviously want to, do financially well but we also want to make sure we get a good product out there and people are going to want to live. And again, this is new. I mean, there has not been this type of product out here. I mean, I'm coming in with an urban. This isn't your cookie cutter granite, stainless steel, 9-foot ceilings, drywall everywhere, and you're going to have your tile bathroom.
This is an eye popper for the area.
Yeah, it's definitely. There won't be another product like this in probably all of Central Florida. In all honesty, and I'm not saying that boastfully. I'm just saying that's been predominantly kind of the product that comes out is, large developers, they tend to go with, more production style. And this is going to be much more unique and, very urban in nature. So it's what we call an industrial chic look.
So what is the finishing like on the interior of it?
This is going to be, there'll be about 16-foot ceilings. There'll be exposed block all the way up with called an extruded grout, which is going to be a grout pattern that's, instead of it'll be kind of a little outside of the grout, so it gives it a little texture, a little warmth to it. These will be lofts, stainless steel railings. We're going to have custom made tongue and groove beach stained flooring. We're going to do a custom painted countertops. I mean, not countertops, kitchen cabinets. And then our bathrooms are all going to be, actually all the flooring's all high polished, like you would see in a high commercial area, natural gray flooring. And then we're going to be doing like spa-like bathrooms with, large white pebbled stone. And
cool.
They're going to be really, really very unique. So we're going to have a lot of warm elements with a lot of the natural wood countertops and loft wood, but then we're going to have a lot of very industrial elements, with the exposed block. You're going to have metal ceilings. Everything's all exposed metal conduit on the outside. So it's going to be very unique. And the windows are going to also be extraordinarily large. They're going to be 8-foot by 5-foot windows. So,
I have to tell you, just listening to you, I can see your passion in the design, but I also realize there's a strategy behind it. There's no direct competition for that. If someone wants that, they're not going to find it somewhere else.
That's correct. And that's, again, this is where I, coming from DC, this is where I see is like, this is an opportunity, guys. Let's be a city. Let's get away from the town mentality. And there's a lot of town mentality, and that's in the type of product that we continue to bring out. It's the type, it's the towers and it's like, I think there's a millennial crowd. And again, working back in Seminole Heights, you see that creative juice. You see this kind of, that's why there's such a draw there, because there is some uniqueness there. I mean, even the food that you eat, it's eclectic. It's different. It's, exciting. It's not something that you're going to see day to day. So the same way in the product set, I want to bring something that's big city, unique. Now, this is the kind of stuff that we would see, in a Washington, D.C., New York City. This is not an unusual product set, and it's what gives it character. It's what people think about when you think Tribeca, you think Chelsea, New York, or you thinking, in Georgetown, or you're thinking the 7th Avenue and Washington, D.C., these reclaimed buildings, warehouses and loft, type places. That's the product that is typically thought of, and it's what gets people like, hey, I really want to gravitate to that, because you want a unique living experience. When you're a millennial and you're only 25, 35, that age group wants, man, this is going to be the time you want to talk about that cool time you lived in those lofts and you went to the bars and you had your friends over. Yeah, that's really what we want to create with these infills.
So the warehouse is a quantum leap forward. Do you see you continuing that trend in the future and looking for similar types of properties?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, will it always be adaptive reuse? No, it won't be. Adaptive reuse, I'll be honest with you, it's hard. It's hard. It's expensive. It's complicated. Doesn't mean I won't do it again for the right building. But it doesn't mean that's the only thing I want to look for too. We can still replicate a lot of the same industrial elements and these urban elements, in other projects. And, right now we've got 2 or 3, on the plate right now. Now some are at contract, some aren't, but I'm going to definitely be doing more of these, and it'll be throughout the city. They won't all be in Seminole Heights.
Can you talk a little bit about the cost structure?
Yeah, to a certain degree. Yeah. To do like an adaptive reuse, building. I mean, and some of the problems you don't know is until you really open her up, you really don't know what
That's the whole problem. Everything's unique.
It's
you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you know. That's one of my favorite sayings. And it's you don't know what your how big are your footers? What's your foundation structure look like? All these fun things. And it's like, okay, inadequate to support that weight. So great. Now, all of a sudden we ended up having to repin 40. You put it, pins are these big, heavy steel beams that just drive at an angle that are there to basically brace, your footers. So we ended up putting in, 40 pins into the building. We had to add, more columns, more footers into the structure as well, because we also we're taking the building, but we're also going up with it. We didn't just keep this building. It's 25 feet high. We're going 50 feet at the end of the day. So we're adding a lot of height to this building. And that's one thing I think people are going to find extraordinarily exciting and maybe a little scary, when all of a sudden they're like, holy mackerel, you're going to see this building from downtown because there's no other this next tallest building I think is 2 stories.
Everything
between us and down.
2 stories. That's it.
So that's what I think is going to be exciting for Seminole Heights is that you're going to have this, this very monikered building that people can really enjoy and will be well seen. But as far as the costs, I mean, those are the things that, they kind of get more complicated to put together and more costly to add in as a lot of that underground, all that, at the end of the day, you basically got 4 walls and everything else is new. You're not keeping any electrical systems. You're not keeping any roofs. You're not keeping any plumbing. All that has to be changed. All your sewer lines, all that kind of fun stuff.
So it's almost like a land acquisition.
It really is. I mean, with some cool walls, like the walls we get to keep. I mean, these are 60-year-old, about 50-year-old walls that all have the cool patina on them. They've had some water leakage through, which has actually made them kind of a cool blue and gray colored, on the block. So that's the kind of stuff that's interesting. But everything else, though, is
it's kind of scary to think about going vertical on walls that are that old already.
Well, that's why you have structural engineers, is to make sure they check those blocks out, and which we have. And that's why we're also doing a lot of the underpinning and all that restructure underneath is to make sure that is safe and solid, for now and, probably another 100 years. I can tell you what, if we ever get a hurricane, I know what building I'm going to. I mean, I'm driving right over to the warehouse. That'll be the strongest place. I mean,
it's like a bunker.
It really is because all our walls are blocked too. So, we've got interior block walls. So we're all condo spec'd, so these things are, this is as strong as any places out there. We're no stick framing here, like you see in a lot of, places out there today.
But Wesley, I can tell just from talking to you, you're a visionary and you're a guy. You're an entrepreneur, visionary. You're seeing things happening that other people are not capable of seeing. So I'm going to ask you to shut that off for a moment.
All right.
And let's just talk about realism here. That area, Tampa, what is the future? Not because I know you're going to want to drift towards your vision of which is you're a visionary. So let's turn it off and let's just talk about what's the reality of what you think's coming for the future here in that area and also the greater city area.
Seminole Heights has, it's hard to, because it's all around, you're seeing in the houses. I mean, Seminole Heights has, worst case, it's going to be better than what it is now, and it's going to continue to progress. I think restaurants are still going to come over here because you still have a lot of people wanting to move in, with new family construction, even with the warehouse. So I see a very bright future for Seminole Heights. It will take a lot more work to get it there because you still have, 14 car lots. I think that is the official number. That's between Sly and Osborne. And you have industrial. It has to get cleaned up. I mean, you're not going to recreate Howard Street, not in the next 3 years. It's just not going to happen.
Well, but Howard Street is an excellent example because that's where there's lots of trendy restaurants and they really drove a lot of the growth around it.
Yep. It's a chicken or the egg, a lot of this. I mean, and that's the balancing point. Something has to lead, but it can't lead too far without the other. You're not going to see a lot of new home build if you don't see a lot of reasons to be there, on the retail side. The retail doesn't want to get too far out in front of the residential. There is a very fine balancing act there. And this case really retail, and the restaurants really kind of did lead, but they were early, and so you had the rise and fall of Seminole Heights. And now this next rebirth, everybody asks, well, what's going to be different this time? Because, we had that back in 2003 through 6. Prices went crazy. You had the Independent and the Refinery and these other restaurants and, Cappies, coming in and people were all excited about Seminole Heights. And then, bam, that crash hit and it hit hard. It wiped out probably half, the area. So why is this rebirth going to be different, and
it's because of the Rooster and the Till.
Hey, there we go. Shout out to Farrell, my buddy. The Rooster and the Till. Yeah. But that Rooster and the Till it is the best restaurant in Tampa. And I say that as factual.
If I didn't say Ty Rodriguez as well, I would be probably.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's
crucified
right.
at the stake. So.
But it is an interesting, change because as you were talking, I was thinking that in most real estate, they say for commercial, follow the rooftops. In this case, it was the rooftops following it's just kind of the way it happened. I mean, and I think that's a little bit more the nature of kind of the individuals. And so, keep in mind, Seminole Heights is a big neighborhood. I think it's probably the largest neighborhood in Seminole Heights. I'm not sure of fact, but it's a very, very large area. And that's one of the things that I think does have going for it, is that it's kind of boxed in with the river and the interstate. And with that many homes, does give it a nice, opportunity, where South Tampa isn't. I mean, if you really look at it, it's really not that as big. I mean, Seminole Heights,
sure.
I
think
it's almost twice the size in pure landmass. Now, obviously, we can increase a lot more density into that area. But to get to your question, where I think Tampa's going, I'm going to take off the visionary hat, things of, all the great things we're going to do, with Gsync and the towers, Tampa's got some great things going for it. Absolutely. It's a good investing dollar done the right way, but it also has a lot of challenges in front of it too. And it has to execute in a lot of particular areas, I think, to maximize that value and that potential that I think Tampa has right now. And multifamily is one of the key areas, because it's one of the underserved areas that really hasn't been done for the last several years. Office has been in the, obviously another area, and it's still expensive. Right now it's still cheaper to buy than it is probably to go out and build. I mean, there's a little bit of tasting on the outside fringes, with some office deals going on, but for the most part, it's still better probably to acquire. Jobs and mass transit are the two top things that Tampa has to really execute. And then that's where the city council, mayors, leadership really have to make sure they execute and get that message out there. Or, not saying it's going to turn into a kind of failure, but it definitely could take, a little steam off the engine, or a little bloom off the rose kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's something that I kind of, I really.
Are they going to get it done? I mean, this is. Listen, I'm almost 50 years old. They've been talking about transit in Tampa since I can remember, and they've not made any progress whatsoever in trying to do any type of transit that makes any kind of sense.
I know.
And so is it going to happen?
I mean, if I'm a betting man, I'm betting against it.
Okay. That's sad.
It's sad. And now, quickly want to turn my visionary glasses back on, because that's, it's very painful to say that. But I've seen nothing that shows me that they're doing anything more proactive, that this time's going to be different. And if I hear about another transportation study, I swear I'm going to throw up. I mean, it just does not make sense. What do you have to study? You need it. Study's done. Good. I just saved you $1 million. Let's go put some trolley cars on the. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out. I mean, I understand. We can get in all the little details. All this. Listen, break down the fiefdoms. Focus on what's really necessary, and get something proactive and something, a test nature on the roads, and let people see that we are doing something. We are a progressive town, because that's what cities, these other large corporate offices, companies maybe looking at relocating. That's what they want to see. They want to see us, hey, putting up another tower, another big building, that's all well and good. They need to see what that infrastructure like, and that's a big part of the infrastructure is your transit systems. Well, the Tampa area and the whole west coast of Florida was way behind the growth on the East Coast, but it's changing now, and so we have to manage that whole infrastructure just to allow the growth to happen in a more positive way. So, Wesley, let me ask you something now, just keeping things simple and really boiling it down. You transformed through various different types of investment strategies. What advice would you give to an investor who's listening now, who's just starting out? How should they go about getting involved? It depends on what you're kind of investing in. If you're talking about a guy that's looking at a multifamily, or some type of larger, that's a different answer.
Yeah, because you've got your, flipper.
I've got
holder,
some townhomes. I've got some
your developer.
Right. So where's a good place for someone to start, and what are the things that they should be afraid of? If you're starting back on, single family, if you're going to look at something on a house flipping side, I would say definitely know your neighborhood. I mean, that is first and foremost. There's a lot of
different neighborhoods. I mean, Tampa, again, you got Carrollwood, West Chase, South Tampa, Brandon, Seminole Heights. So you have all these, and I'd say every single one of those would be different. So jumping across all of them would be, I think, foolhardy, and you probably lose, you could lose your shirt that way. So that would be the first thing is, and then the second would make sure you've got a good team too. I mean, you really need to know who you're working with. I mean, there's
contractors,
contractor wise. Yeah. I mean, you can really get hurt there too. If those guys, and especially if you start farming out each piece and, there's not a whole lot of relationship going on, it can get real expensive and it eats all your margin up. I mean, next thing you know, when you think you got a 25-30 margin deal, now the next thing you're trying to break even. And I'm like, there's no fun in working 6 months, hard designing to break even. That doesn't pay you very well.
Is it better to go, that you found in your experience, to go with one GC that quarterbacks that? Or is it better for you to try to be the quarterback? And I
think there's definitely a strong partnership there. To GC it? No. I mean, unless you're particularly skilled in that area, no, don't GC it yourself. I mean, you can say, all right, I want my electrician here, my plumber here, and do all those kind of things. From a scheduling, it's fine. But if you're gonna do one project, sure, why not? You can do that yourself. But if you're gonna try to sit there and say, listen, I want to, try to do a few, it's better to have that GC and let them quarterback. But you need to run and say, here's what you clearly need to set my goals, my timelines. Here's what my budget is. Here's my expectations, and make sure those things are all met. So you're, in a lot of ways, you are GCing it because you're setting the strategy. They're there executing the plays. And that's what the GC should be doing, is really focusing on executing what you are telling them that you want to have done there. If you go in there and you have no idea what you want to do, like, do I want to change the kitchen? Do I want to open up this house? You may be in over your head a little bit. Doesn't mean you need to be a designer, but your GC, that's where they can help. Like, how much does it cost to take this wall out? What if we did this? Running those what ifs, that's really how you get a good product out there. But you need to know what those costs are so that you can make those decisions. And I see too many people just run right in and go, gangbusters right into a project and kind of overspend and overdo. A house that, probably wasn't necessarily value add. And like I said, that's how you lose money doing it. So there's a tight relationship with you and the GC is really, I think, to me, it was very critical, and it really worked out very, very well. Cause they also knew they were going to get all the work and didn't use anybody else. And so, we just had an arrangement. So they were, when I called, they were there to be there the next day. It wasn't like, oh, Wes, we're kind of tied up on some other projects. We'll get there in 2 weeks. No, they weren't, because I had them fill, they were lined up with, doing my projects. So that really, really helped. And and they got to know me and I got to know them. It got to be a lot easier in the end. They just kind of knew what we were going to do. I mean, this is going to be our standard bathroom. Yeah, but I'm going to change this light and this, do this piece here. So but to start off is really make sure you understand what your goal is, and then also how you want to work with, the GC.
Great advice. Biggest mistake you ever made?
Oh gosh. Probably, I'd say the greatest mistake. That's a great question. I don't like to think of I don't think in terms like that. I know
you're a visionary. You're just like,
we don't think of behind. Yeah, I mean,
pretend it didn't happen.
Well, I mean, actually, the greatest mistake I had was investing, but it wasn't with real estate. Real estate's been good to me, but it was actually I got Ponzi schemed. So yeah, I got
Steven. Steven knows something about that.
Yeah, I was actually on CNBC with a guy Enrico Bertoli. So that was my worst. That was my worst one. So be careful who you invest with sometimes. How about that?
Yeah.
So,
well, Stephen?
Well, listen, I mean, I thought that was fascinating. I mean, we learned a lot from you. I mean, basically you said it's just really easy to invest in real estate.
Absolutely. Everybody makes $1 million. If everybody invested in real estate, everybody be a millionaire.
That's right. All you have to do is know your area, know your customer, know your product, and know the people you're dealing with, and then it's easy, right?
Well, that's a good starting place. Yeah, I would definitely say start there. And, it also happens to have, having some good banking and lending options out there too. I think there's I mean, and to be honest with you, that's a big part of my story has been the banking, the banking issues that I went through. But
who's your relationship with, by the way?
But now, it's with Sunshine Bank. Okay. And I'll be honest with you, they've been great. I mean, once we got that relationship started, they have absolutely opened up a lot of doors, and it just made made it, now worthwhile, looking at, other deals and then just getting this one off the ground. But I mean, I tell you what, you get, 10, 11, 12 no's, man. It's tough to get out of bed the next day to keep on, moving forward. But that's the kind of thing that you have to do in some of these projects. And it's the same way, you mentioned as well. You may look at 30 deals, you may get one. That's a lot of no's before you get that yes.
Got to kiss a lot of frogs.
Yeah. You got to kiss a lot of frogs. And I think that's what gets lost on people. People are like, oh, we just called it. Someone called up and there's a house. Yeah, that's wonderful on a TV show, but that is not how it's done at all. You have to go through so much, filtering. It's like, almost looking for gold, like panning. And that, it's like perseverance. I mean, if I was going to tell you anything, is just, if that's really what you want to do, make sure you work hard through it, persevere, just don't let anybody say no and keep working on. I know that sounds a little cliche, but I'm telling you, it really is very, very important. Because if not, it's very easy to get discouraged because there's always setbacks.
No, absolutely. And I can tell that you have an indomitable personality and that you have a passion for this. So this is a drive in helping you succeed and push through those barriers. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your story and how much coming in to talk to us today. And Stephen, is there anything else before?
Yeah, Wesley, if people want to reach you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
We have a couple different ways to reach us. We have warehouselosttampa.com is our website. Then go on and can kind of see a little bit more about the project. Facebook is and that social media we didn't really get into a lot, but that's been a big part of our strategy and success has been around the social media aspect and getting people behind this, what we're doing in Seminole Heights. So it's Warehouse Loss. It's Facebook /Warehouse Loss. Sure. So that's another really great way to get me and or my email. You can always email me directly at wburdette1@yahoo.com.
Awesome.
Okay, and one last question, because you happen to be in a funky area that's very adventurous in the culinary art. So is there one restaurant or maybe a couple that you can suggest that you really like?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said before, Rooster in the Till is really one of my favorite. It's an intimate dining experience. I mean, it's only 1,100 square foot restaurant, although they're expanding right now. But that would be first and foremost. It just, the small plate, a lot of great taste. Another place in Seminole Heights too that I would say that, I really do like, and it's the Refinery. They change that menu out every 3 days. So they get a lot of very unique, food elements. I mean, some of the stuff's out there, but I tell you, I had a cow tongue. I was like, oh God, it's
unbelievable, huh?
I've had that too. Really fantastic. The way because it's all the things they marry with it. And that's the thing. Way these chefs work, like Farrell at the Rooster, it's the marrying of the ingredients. Like I would never think about putting some, different, some of the chutneys and the jalapenos with a fish. And it just comes out like, it's like a party in your mouth. So those are some great places to check out as well. So.
You know what? I think I have to go now because Wesley's making me hungry.
There you go.
All right, Wesley, again, we appreciate your time. Appreciate your passion and energy in trying to transform Seminole Heights, push Seminole Heights forward, and we need more folks like you in town. I appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot, gentlemen.
Thanks, Wesley. It was great.
Goodbye.
And that was developer Wesley Burdette. Stephen, what I got out of that whole thing is Wesley is a Tasmanian devil, a whirling dervish of energy, but it's very focused. The guy is really, to sit in front of him, he's a very energetic guy, high energy, very focused on what he's doing, and he spends a lot of time, passion drives. I think that's an important thing for people to know. You guy like Wesley, he's knocked down a lot of barriers to get where he's gone, from single family flipper to owner, long-term holder, and now developer. So this is a guy with a lot of passion and energy for real estate. It was really exciting to sit and actually listen and actually watch the guy in action. What did you get out of it, Stephen?
Well, Eric, I think you're right about his passion, but he doesn't let his passion get in the way of his business. And he really makes a point of studying both the area and his customers so that he delivers the product that is right for the conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to wrap up for the week, I'd like to remind people that past shows you can get on investfloridashow.com. We would strongly encourage you to download the apps, both Apple and Android apps that we have available for you. And that's the best way to listen to podcasts. Put it on your mobile phone. You can listen to it when you're at the gym or driving to and from work. So that's all I got. Stephen, anything else?
No, Eric, I enjoyed it and look forward to seeing you at the next podcast.
Hasta la vista.
You have just listened to the Invest Florida podcast with Eric Odom and Steven Silverman. Join us every week for actionable real estate investment ideas and visit our website at www.investfloridashow.com for past shows and tips on how to earn a cash flow in the real estate market in Florida. Please check with your legal, financial, and tax advisors before entering into any investment. Returns will vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. All information expressed in this show is for educational purposes only.